Hey fellow Horror Night fans and Universal fans alike, I'm the Crazy Englishman and welcome back to Halloween Horror World, where we're going to be discussing Halloween Horror Nights 2014. Did it live up? Some of the issues that need to be sorted out. So I'm just going to be talking about what I think about this year, and then really quickly some of the problems that this year has experienced. This is going on my correspondence back in Hollywood about what they thought about that event, as well as going off by what my parents have experienced in the Orlando event, as well as some of my colleagues who do updates for Horror Nights as well, what they've said. So let's jump right into it. The event this year has definitely felt like a mixed bag, and I don't say that in a bad way. I think the event needs to find its footing again, and I feel that they need to return to this kind of themed event. They need to have an event that feels pulled together, whereas this is just kind of it. And this is not just Orlando. I mean, Hollywood's always been kind of a scattered set. Like, you got Evil Dead mixing with Walking Dead, mixing with Insidious, and there's no real kind of tie with these mazes. And I feel that the lack of an icon really doesn't help. It doesn't help tie these mazes together in one cohesive event. So despite it feeling scattered, I think some of the mazes were fantastic this year. We had Alien vs. Predator, both very different in both events, both looking great. Where in the Orlando one we have more of an Aliens maze with cameos by Predator, and then in Hollywood we have very much an Alien vs. Predator maze based closer to AVPR. And so these two great mazes, you have one that has very sci-fi kind of feel, whereas the second one feels very homely, but with aliens invading the town with predators. And the puppets look great. ADI did a fantastic job recreating and sending the puppets over for Hollywood to use, as well as Orlando. And I feel the event probably wouldn't have worked as well if Orlando and Hollywood didn't have the assistance with ADI with using the puppets, and I don't think they would have gone ahead with it. Like Mike Aiello said, that they probably wouldn't have done Alien vs. Predator had American Werewolf in London not been as successful as it was with the puppets. So, I mean, you've got these really big AAA maze titles. The Walking Dead back for a third year. I've heard only a few negative things about the Walking Dead experience, but I've heard overall fantastic maze. Definitely used the space that it was required in the Orlando one, which biggest house that they've ever built. So Walking Dead, despite being back a third year, definitely success, and it definitely brings in more money for Orlando and Hollywood, because there's a lot of Walking Dead fans who've probably never done Horror Nights, who are coming in to experience it for live. Halloween in Orlando, definitely, I think it's a good maze. I know if you've watched my parents' different perspective on Orlando's event video, they discussed that they wanted to like it. They thought it would be the best, but it really turned out to be kind of a disappointment. And they had some valid points. Having seen some of the walkthrough myself of the maze, I feel that it is too bright in some parts. Halloween, if you've seen the film, is a very dark film near the end that uses a lot of shadow work, whereas the maze is very bright. Too many Michael Myers, which kind of sucks you out of the experience. The whole point of the first Halloween is you never know when Michael's about to jump out, because there's these long gaps where you just don't see Michael, and it works really successfully. I get that in a maze attraction you have to keep the beat rolling, but I think there's also a pace that needs to be kept in as well. Crowd control also kind of ruined that maze because of how small the corridors were when you're walking through. I know it got convoluted sometimes with the amount it kind of convulsed because there were so many people in there. From Dusk Till Dawn, definitely a surprise maze. Heard nothing but good things about that maze, and having seen the Hollywood walkthrough, I can see why, and having sat down and watched the series all the way through, and as a fan of the film as well, I definitely loved it. I loved the aspects. The Orlando one looked great. The Hollywood one was done to detail. They're both great mazes. So definitely a surprise, because I know a lot of people like, I mean, me included, I wasn't sure about the choice, but definitely turned out to be a great success. Even the 3 original mazes at Orlando, definitely a surprise. Giggles and Gore, I've heard mixed things about, but overall, an okay maze. Nothing spectacular, nothing jump out, kind of special, but definitely a good maze in itself. Roanoke and Dollhouse of the Damned took a lot of people by surprise. Roanoke was one of the 3 that I was most excited for, because I love the Legend of Roanoke. Turned out to be a great success. Definitely, I've heard from a lot of people, actually very scary maze in some parts. And the setting, I think that would be a great setting for another maze to come back to at a later date, is use kind of period pieces. I think Gothic horror could work really well as an original maze, and Roanoke has shown it that it is possible. Dollhouse of the Damned definitely surprised a lot of people. Now, dollhouses and kind of like that whole doll type aspect has been done to death. But with Dollhouse of the Damned, they definitely brought out the stops. The costumes were great, some really disturbing things that not a lot of people have done in dollhouse type attractions. And it definitely surprised a lot of people. And so there's a lot of kudos to that. Having seen the interior of Dollhouse of the Damned, definitely pulled out the stops to make a really cool looking environment that was both appealing to look at but disturbing as hell. So Dollhouse of the Damned, definitely a good job on that. Of course, we got American Werewolf in London coming to Hollywood event. Not too much different than the Orlando one, but definitely a lot of fun with the puppets. The werewolf puppets look great as usual. The setup very similar to Orlando, but also with some differences, because again it's a tent maze, but definitely worked out. Dracula Untold was kind of a disappointment for a lot of people. I mean, there was not a lot expecting from it in the first place, but I heard from the Orlando one, I know UK HHN specifically despises this, at least the Orlando one. Having seen the Hollywood one, it looked fun. The Hollywood one definitely different than the Orlando one. So I'm hoping maybe one day someone will be able to release a full walkthrough of the Orlando one, so I can compare and contrast what they are. So, but definitely a maze. Nothing too special about that. Face Off in the Flesh as a maze in Hollywood definitely was a lot of fun. I mean, they brought back dubstep, but because it was the last hurrah for the House of Horrors, they painted some of the walls. They were allowed to alter some of the things. Not drastically, but definitely added something other. Of course, the characters looked great in the settings that they were given, and actually looked a lot of fun. Let's talk scare zones very briefly. Scare zones, there was nothing special this year. Nothing that made people go, ooh, like this is great. I know from the Orlando event, a lot of them were misses. You would walk past and probably never even knew you walked through a scare zone. I mean, you had the whole controversy in Hollywood with the 3 kids and the harassment for the Purge Anarchy. The Masquerade one in Hollywood actually looked really good, but I think the standout one in Hollywood, Dark Christmas. The Dark Christmas one looked fantastic. I love the lighting, a very twisted look on Christmas itself. I love the fact that they brought in the Krampus legend. Definitely a cool looking scare zone. Sorry, definitely a cool scare zone. The kind of decorations that they put up for it were fantastic. Very immersive scare zone. So overall, what do I think of this year? I wouldn't say it's a standout year, but definitely I think with the addition of Alien vs. Predator, it opens the doors to other possibilities, maybe big creature mazes. So it excites me that this year has the even though it wasn't a very special year, and it wasn't a bad year, but it wasn't an overall fantastic year, it still opened the door for the possibilities of new, cool monster mazes, because we don't really see too many monster mazes. We see a lot of human killers, humanoid characters, but with the puppets of Alien and the costumes for Predator, definitely brings in the possibility of something really cool for the future. Maybe bring in a classic themed movie, classic monster movie. I'm still waiting on a Them maze. I don't care what anyone says, that would look fantastic in a maze. Just got to find a way out to put giant ants in a maze attraction. Yeah, so I mean, I overall thought this year was good. I mean, again, nothing special, nothing bad, but definitely a good stepping stone. And I think if I was to say anything, I think the one thing they really have to work on is crowd control. Crowd control is getting insane, of how bad it's getting at Orlando. I know that both my parents and UK HHN have both stated that it sucks you out of the experience when you're just stood there in the maze and you can see all the actors revert back to their original spaces and you know where they are. And I agree. I've been in a maze like that a couple of times where I've gotten stuck in a maze, and it just sucks you right out of the experience. So I think Hollywood and it's worse in Orlando, but I know in Hollywood, in the backlot kind of mazes, crowd control needs to be worked on. But I think Orlando, in terms, is the worst perpetrator of this, because it's just getting crazy how convoluted some of the interior of the mazes are getting. So yeah, definitely crowd control needs to be sorted out. I will be doing more individual reviews, because work, time allotting, but I will be doing individual maze reviews, continuing with those, which are more in depth of what I thought about the details, the sets, the characters. So what did you guys think? Did you enjoy this year? Did you have a fantastic Halloween? I hope you guys have had an awesome Halloween this year.